Alright, so next up we're going to have Shea. He's going to read a chapter out of his book, and then after Shea we're going to have an intermission. So this is going to be Luke the Noble, chapter number 4.
I had some wine already, hopefully it won't detract from my ability to read.
It'll probably enhance the experience.
Maybe so.
Wine makes everything better.
Exactly. All right, this is chapter 4 of my book. This chapter is really bloody long, so I might not read the whole thing. We might have to break this one up. It's really long. Because this is the point in any story, whether a book or a movie, usually referred to as the big event, where something happens that changes the character's life in a big way. That's why this chapter is so long, because it's really important. I guess some background for the new people. This is a teen, young adult fantasy fiction. It's a fairy tale. It's set back in medieval times. It's set in a fictional world that is modeled on medieval England. And I would be doing various British accents. And it's basically a reverse Cinderella. You have the main character, Lucas, is a peasant boy. He's a serf, he has nothing, and he falls in love with the princess, who is heiress to the throne, and she has everything. So there's a bit more to it than that, but that's the gist of it. So this is chapter 4, entitled The Sacred Oak. Yes, somebody is opening it up.
Now's the time to drop your phone.
Sorry about that.
Yes, turn off your phones. All right. A huge hand grabbed Lucas by the tunic and lifted him 5 feet in the air. The pudgy face that scowled down at him displayed a look of rage. Who do you think you are, you little ragamuffin? Stowing away in my air cart. Sorry, sir. I was hiding from an elf and I accidentally fell asleep in your cart. Oh, a wise guy, eh? Hiding from an elf, he says. The man lifted his stowaway all the way up to his eyes and stared him down. Lucas could smell his breath, a combination of rotting teeth and last night's binge of ale. He threw Lucas down to the ground. Ouch! That was twice. The man got back in the driver's seat of his hay cart. Looking down at the stowaway to whom he taught a lesson, he smiled and said, "Thank the old father, I woke up in a good mood this morning. Most days I'm a miserable bloke who has your lot arrested." If this is his good mood, thought Lucas, I'd hate to see him in a bad one. The man laughed hard as he drove away. "Stay out of trouble, you little hooligan." That would be the Cockney East End of London accent. Lucas stood up and brushed off the remaining hay still clinging to his clothes. He had to get his bearings. How far had that miserable bloke taken him? Looking to his left and right, he recognized nothing. It was when Lucas turned around to look behind him that his jaw dropped. Oh, good God. Dominating the landscape in front of him, not more than 100 yards away, stood the royal palace, home and court of the king and queen of Albion. Farther than I thought. Sitting atop a large hill, the castle was visible to anyone within several miles of it. Lucas had never seen anything like it. Everything in his life was on a much smaller scale. Just looking at it caused him to have trouble breathing for a moment. The thing was so massive it looked like his entire village could fit comfortably inside it with room left over. Tall, conical towers higher than Lucas's oak tree seemed to touch the sky. The curtain wall dwarfed any who walked by it. The crenellated parapet resembled a crown encircling the palace. Here was certainly the center of royal authority. The arrow slits spaced every few meters appeared to be a warning to would-be attackers. All around the castle was a hive of activity. People, animals, and carts, buzzing in and out like so many determined bees. Guards at the gate controlled the flow of traffic to and from the palace, bringing order to the otherwise chaotic movement. As Lucas walked down the well-maintained road to the royal palace, he caught numerous glares of disgust from fellow travelers. They all seemed to be put off by his appearance. The looks they gave him said one thing perfectly clear. What is a villain doing so close to His Majesty's castle? And by villain, that was a word that in those days meant peasant or serf. It's not villain as in an evil person. Just to clarify that. You're welcome. Lucas felt very out of place. Lucas felt very out of place, as if he had shown up naked to church. The disapproving expressions from others matched those he would surely get from the clergy, were such a thing ever to occur. His peasant clothes suddenly felt very inadequate. All the flash of color, the appearance of cloaks, long tunics, pointy shoes, and even shorter hair made Lucas look like he was underdressed. Lucas wandered down the road, distracted by all the new sights, sounds, and even smells attacking his senses. It was all just a bit too much to take in, and he was starting to feel overwhelmed. Unable to remove his gaze from the royal palace, he slowly reached down into his purse and closed his fist around the acorn inside. Feeling the texture of the nut against his palm calmed him down. He brought the acorn to his nose and inhaled deeply. The odor brought him back to the tree. Feeling more relaxed, Lucas found he could enjoy his sightseeing more. He looked left and right and all around him, trying now to take it all in. A smile managed to find its way onto his face. And in case you're confused, everybody had purses back then because they had no pockets. Even guys had purses. That little bag where you keep your change. Yeah, they were called purses because they didn't have pockets. They weren't invented yet. Unfortunately, his renewed interest in being a tourist did not enhance Lucas's already poor concentration. There were several near misses with other travelers. Both pedestrians and subjects on horseback continually had to dodge the distracted peasant boy in order to avoid a collision. A horse whinnied. A man yelled, "Watch out, you fool!" Lucas turned his head and looked up in horror as the horse's hoof just missed his face by an inch. Instinctively, he stepped back to keep from getting hit and lost his balance. For the second time today, Lucas was on the ground. This time, he landed hard on his bottom. "You bloody fool, kid! You could have been killed!" Lucas looked up at a much better dressed driver than the one of the hay cart. He looked like he could be a royal servant of some sort. He also wasn't as fat and seemed to have all his teeth. "Why don't you watch where you're going? This is a heavily traveled road." "I'm terribly sorry, sir. I got distracted." "I'll say, you know I could have you arrested for blocking traffic, eh?" Lucas shook his head. "Do you know who I am? Do you know who my passenger—" The carriage driver was interrupted mid-sentence by the sound of a door opening. Both he and Lucas looked to see a beautiful young girl step out. The sight of a long turquoise green kirtle with full open sleeves that hung low signaled that the young lady was a noble, but it was the appearance of the tiara placed atop her head that declared her royalty. As she emerged from inside the carriage, her long light brown hair was in her face. Brushing it away, the girl scanned the scene with bright blue eyes. "Lucas?" "Stephanie!" Lucas's face lit up. "What the bloody—" started the carriage driver. "You two know each other?" "Yes," said Stephanie. "We've been acquainted." Turning to Lucas, she asked, "What are you doing here?" He stopped short. She would never believe him. "Well, it's a long story." The driver interrupted. "What the bloody hell is going on here? How is it you can be acquainted with a ruffian like this?" "He's not a ruffian, Edward. He's a nice boy. And watch your language." "Apologies, Your Highness. You're the princess," Lucas suddenly blurted out. "Yes, Lucas. I'm sorry for my deception the other day." She lowered her eyes. "It's just, well, I wanted to get out without being recognized." She met his eyes again. "It grows tiring sometimes, being the princess. It was nice to step into another role, if just for a bit." Lucas was speechless. He could not imagine growing tired of being royalty. Having riches, power, and freedom must be the greatest thing ever. Just the luxuries alone she had access to had to be worth it. Lucas had never even had a hot bath in his life. It was the cold river water or nothing. Stephanie looked down at Lucas. He was still sitting on the ground. She gave her servant an expression of disgust. "Well, if you're not going to do your man's duty..." She walked over to Lucas and extended her hand. He hesitated. "It's the same hand you took when you thought I was a commoner. It's all right to touch it again." She flashed him a smile. "Come on, let me help you up." He reached out for her. She pulled him up to his feet. Both Lucas and Edward were quite surprised that she could do such a thing. "Are you all right?" Lucas brushed himself off. I think so. Satisfied he was now presentable, he turned his attention back to Stephanie. Stephanie, he caught himself. I mean, Your Highness. My prayer has been answered. She smiled at him again. Prayer? It's so good to see you again. She suddenly threw her arms around him. He was completely caught off guard. How could the princess be hugging him? Should he hug back? What was the correct protocol when a royal embraced you? Stephanie's servant jumped into action, or at least strongly worded speech. Your Majesty, I must protest. This is highly irregular. You mustn't... Stephanie broke the hug and turned to face her servant. And you mustn't tell me what I can or can't do. Just who is in charge here anyway? Apologies, Your Highness. I just... Okay, next page. You'll keep quiet before you dig yourself a deeper hole, Edward. I think you'll have much to confess at church this Sunday. Without letting him reply, she turned back to Lucas. I'm sorry for the behavior of my servant. You deserve better. Lucas was feeling very disoriented. The princess was apologizing to him? The natural order of the world had turned upside down very quickly. Are you hurt? Lucas shook his head. Are you sure? Perhaps you should come with me to the palace to be examined by the court barber. In those days, the barber was the same as the doctor. The man who cut your hair was the same guy that did surgery on you. In case you were confused. Lucas lost his voice again for a second. Now he was being invited into the royal palace. He snapped out of it. I can't. I gotta get back home. I'll be in enough trouble already. My mom and stepdad will never believe this. Stephanie sighed. Are you sure you're okay? She looked genuinely concerned. He nodded. I'll be fine. Thank you. Your Highness? Please, call me Stephanie. I think you've earned that right from the kindness you showed me that day. She looked at her servant. Edward, we're taking Lucas home. Your Highness? You heard me. Take us to Ocean. It's due east of here. I'm quite familiar with the location of that pathetic little village. Edward, watch your tongue. Apologies, Your Highness. Edward made to open the carriage door and help his charge inside when Stephanie interrupted. I think Lucas can help me in. Your Highness? You've upset me too much, Edward. I shall not require your assistance. On our way to Ocean, you can think about what you've done. Yes, Your Highness. Edward bowed and walked toward the driver's seat. Lucas, if you would. Of course, milady. He opened the door, then gently took Stephanie's hand and helped her into the carriage. Once inside, Lucas quickly forgot all about the unpleasantness between Stephanie and Edward. The interior was as beautiful as the exterior. The seats were actually soft, which came as a relief to Lucas's now sore bottom. The windows had red curtains which matched the seats and the walls. The ride was much more comfortable and smooth than any horse-drawn transport to which he was accustomed. Lucas sat back and enjoyed the ride home. And we could stop here.